Alright guys, so today I'm going to be talking about EC2. So this is just a little bit of an update from my AWS Skill Builders course that I'm taking, which is the AWS Cloud Quest. I'm trying to gain this badge over here. And so today I really learned about the EC2 service, which is offered within AWS. To access it, go to your console home, then just type in EC2, and then you'll find one over here called EC2 Virtual Servers in the Cloud. This is the option. Press it, and there you are. Then all you need to press is launch instance. But before I do this, I just want to go over some key concepts with you guys. All right. So EC2, first of all, what is it? Right. Basically, it's a service that allows us to host our own servers. All right. Specifically, it's going to host a virtual server because again, we're using the cloud. But we can go ahead and launch these servers and then add whatever we want to these servers, right? For example, we can add a node.js application into it, right? We can add an Apache service into it. Doesn't matter, right? Because again, it is going to be hosted within a Linux-based system, right? Or sorry, I should say Unix-based system, right? But mainly people use Linux. So anyways, now that you know what it is, again, it just allows you to host your own servers. Let's press launch instance. Now, another thing is, what is instance? Well, essentially, an instance is just one singular server within your EC2 services, all right? So you can host as many servers as you want, and each server within EC2 is called an instance. So let's press launch instance. Let's give this a name. I'm just going to call this demo for YT, all right? And then when we scroll down, you'll see something called application OS images and then Amazon machine image. So this is AMI, and you can see Amazon actually gives you a very, very good explanation of it, but I'm going to explain it within my own words, so then I am consolidating and learning myself. All right. So basically, an AMI provides the information required to run the software of an instance. All right. So obviously, this instance is a server, therefore, it needs to have software in order to be able to run, right? And an AMI provides the template or the blueprint to start that server. All right, to start those software. All right, and so you can have many different AMIs, but by default you're going to use Amazon Linux, which is just Amazon's version of Linux. I like that, so we're going to keep that. We're going to keep everything the same, but again, I just wanted to explain what an AMI was. All right, and if you didn't know, AMI is just the acronym for Amazon Machine Image. Now we can go ahead and click an instance type. So within the instance types, you have many different options, and essentially each instance type specifies different hardware components, all right? And within each hardware components, you can either upgrade your hardware or downgrade your hardware, right? So as you can see, these are very, very, high level and very computational heavy instance types. As you can see, they have absurd amount of CPUs. Oh, I can't do that. Okay. Well, but as you can see, they have like the C5 family has an absurd amount of CPUs, like 16, 48 CPUs, 96 CPUs, right? So essentially, an instance type just allows you to upgrade your hardware or downgrade your hardware, all right? And it just specifies the hardware that your server will have. In my case, I'm using the most weakest one, which is T2.micro, and it only has one CPU and 1 gigabyte of memory, and this is just the free tier eligible. Now we have a key pair, which is essentially just authentication. So we can use this, use a key pair to securely connect to our instance, all right? And essentially what it does is it encrypts our login data through a public key. So the public key will encrypt our login data. Then our private key will decrypt the login data that our public key encrypted, all right? And that way we're able to log in. So you can essentially, if your public key does become public, it's not a big deal because without the private key, the public key is useless. But of course, you don't want that to happen. But anyways, essentially, through that public key and private key system, you're essentially adding an extra layer of security because now you have to have that encrypt and decryption within your login data. All right. Within my case, I am going to go ahead and proceed without a key pair. This is very, very bad, not good practice. But again, this is just for testing and for my journaling purposes, so it's fine. Then within network settings, we're actually going to learn more about VPCs later on, as you can see. In networking concepts, we're going to learn about VPC and different things within VPC. So I'll talk about that later on. But something very, very important that I did learn was regions and availability zones. All right, and we're going to see that within our subnet. So I'm just going to go ahead and explain those, and then I will start doing stuff within the console. So essentially, AWS is a very, very big company, right? Amazon is its parent company, and it's very, very massive. AWS as its own service. And so essentially, the AWS networks and the AWS services, they're not all in one place, right? One geographical place. They're all over the world. So a region specifies a specific geographical location in which you have AWS services. All right. Now, an availability zone, it goes a level down. All right. It becomes much more specific. An availability zone is essentially an isolated location within the region. All right. And this isolated location contains a multitude of different data centers that all are connected together. All right. And they all are linked together, I should say. Okay. So now that we know what regions are and availability zones are, which are both just levels of AWS services and how they're distributed, let's go ahead and learn what security groups are. So again, I'm skipping what VPCs are because we're going to learn really more about that later on. All right, but a firewall or a security group is essentially allowing us to control the traffic coming in or out of our instance. All right, so it's another way of securing our instance. Okay, so we can go ahead and create a security group, and within here we can, through here, the inbound security group rules, we can go ahead and add different IP addresses in which people are allowed to go ahead and get our service. All right, so right now I have the rule as set to everyone through this IP address, which just specifies any IP address, as you can see, through anywhere. But I can add a custom over here and then go ahead and add a specific IP or a DNS. All right, so for me, I'm just going to go ahead and use the default one. Because it doesn't really matter. But again, a security group is essentially allowing you to configure a virtual firewall. And this firewall will control the traffic for your instance. All right, it'll control who gets to access your service and who doesn't based on their IP or DNS. Then we can go ahead and configure our storage. So this is just the storage that our server has, and the root volume just contains our AMI. And this is good. Default configurations are all good, and we're good to go. Now, before I go ahead and spin this server up, or this instance, I should say, in advanced details, if I scroll down, you will actually see user data. Now, user data is specific actions that can occur, and AWS EC2 will automatically run them for you. They are done through a bash file, right? Such as this one that I have actually downloaded, right? It's just a bash file that contains your commands, all right? And they will just run by themselves automatically. In my case, I don't really want that, so I'm just going to keep that empty. Now we're going to go ahead and launch this instance. Once we're done, we can go to our instance ID, all right? And then it's just pending, so let it just spin up. So we're good to go. And now I'm going to explain how we can connect to this EC2 instance. And furthermore, all right, above all of that, I'm going to explain how we can go ahead and access this through the IPv4 address and DNS that it automatically provides us. All right, so let's just wait for it to spin up. And as you can see, it's running now. I just have to refresh. And if I just click on this over here, I can see the different things that this instance has. in my case, as you can see, this is the public IPv4 address. So for those who don't know, a domain is mapped to an IP address in which it maps so that, the browser can actually access the resource, right? So for me, this is the IPv4 address that's public, right? You can go ahead and click on this and you can go and you'll be able to access it. And this is my IPv4 DNS, so this is my domain, right? But nothing's going to happen if I go here, right? I can try and access this. Nothing's going to happen because I don't have anything configured. It's just a plain Linux server, right? So the browser doesn't really have anything to show, right? Because there's no web server or anything attached to it. All right. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect. All right. So I'm going to connect to this instance because, again, this instance is just a Linux server. So I can connect through many different ways, actually. So when you just go to the instance details, all right, and you can do that by going to your instance, pressing the instance ID, and then pressing connect over here. And then as you can see, you have different ways of connecting. So you can connect through EC2, Instance Connect, Session Manager, SSH Client, or EC Serial Console. All right. Now these three are mainly what's used. I've never really seen anyone use this one, so I'm just going to talk about these three. All right. So EC2 Instance Connect, it instantly connects it. All right. When you just press this, it will connect it without any issues, right? You don't need to add any login details. You don't need to add any commands to, install anything or, to go ahead and run it through an SSH command, nothing. You just press this connect button and you have a browser-based connection. Then in session managers, and right now you can see that it's giving me an error, and that's because session managers actually is part of another service, all right? And this service is actually called, AWS Systems Manager. All right. So you just need to make sure that you configure it so that AWS Systems Manager, the client, the agent, I should say, is online. In this case, it isn't, right? SSM is just the abbreviation for Systems Manager. But yeah, so that's why I'm not able to connect. But then you have the SSH client. So this is where you can connect through your terminal, all right, through an SSH connection, right? An SSH connection allows you to connect to Linux servers, and this is how you just do it, right? So in this case, I would skip this part and this part, these two, because I do not have a key configured, right? A public or private key. All right. Now I'm going to demonstrate how we can vertically scale. All right. So there's two types of scaling. So scaling is essentially how you're going to handle more requests coming in as your website becomes more popular and has more of a user base. All right. And vertically scaling through EC2 is very, very simple. All right. Now, please note that, through vertical scaling, you will eventually reach a bottleneck or it'll become too expensive. So I don't really recommend it for high scale applications. For lower scale applications, I would say from 500 to maybe 1,000 or 1,500 users. I think it would be fine to just vertically scale because then adding a horizontal scaling would be very, very overkill. Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying right now, let me actually show you. Scaling visualized software design. So this is a good example. Essentially, this is what we're going to do right now. And this is horizontal scaling. So with vertical scaling, all you're going to do is you're going to upgrade the hardware of your software. So all the requests coming into your server, all right, they're all going to come into one server, all right? It's just going to be one singular server, but then this server is just going to keep upgrading itself in terms of the hardware. With horizontal scaling, though, you're going to have the server is going to be just medium hardware. It's not going to be the hardware is not going to be very, very overkill, but there's going to be multiple amounts of servers. So then the network that comes in and the amount of requests that comes in are distributed amongst these different servers. All right, so they're just distributed so that one server at a time is not overwhelmed. Okay, so these are the two ways of scaling. In my case, I'm just going to show you guys how to do vertical scaling. And if you haven't guessed already how we're going to do this, well, it's through instance types. Because remember, instance types is how we define the hardware that our instance has, right? So if I go back here, first of all, it's very, very important that you stop your instance. Okay, so you can just press stop instance over here. Stop it. Do not terminate it. Terminating will delete it from existence. We just want to stop it so that we can upgrade its hardware. So now in the instance state, it's saying stopping because it's currently in this process of stopping. So do not upgrade the instance yet. You want it to say stopped, not stopping. Okay, now that the instance has been stopped, all we have to do is go into actions, go into instance settings, then change instance type. Then over here, as you can see, it's actually giving us the different hardware components that I currently have. As you can see, it's very, very weak. So I can go ahead and just choose a different instance type, which will upgrade my settings. All right. But please note that if you do upgrade it, the amount charged would be much more higher. In my case, I'm not going to add anything else because I'm not really sure if I have any other free tier eligible instance types, and I don't want to really take that risk right now. But you can just go ahead and choose another instance type, press apply, and then start your instance, I should say, again, and you're good to go. All right, you've just vertically scaled. Okay. So yeah, that is it from me. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and terminate my instance. This just means that I'm going ahead and deleting my instance from my account. All right, you don't have to do this because I just did it because this was just for a demo. All right, so that is EC2 in AWS hosting servers. Thank you for watching my video and my journal, and I hope to catch you in another one. Bye.